You are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search.
Welcome to the Woman Arising podcast, hosted by Cathy Hartenstein and Zeffi Devi, where we elevate and celebrate inspiring women on the rise. In this podcast, we talk to women from all walks of life about their soul's journey, the obstacles they overcame, and how they embody their feminine power. We hope to elevate women's place in the world, showcase their contributions, and provide inspiration for all women to rise to their fullest potential. Today, our guest is Danielle Artigo, a highly regarded channel, energy healer, and angelic Reiki master. Renowned for her deep connection with the ascended masters and the angelic realm, she has become a guiding light for those in search of clarity, healing, and spiritual growth. With extensive training and a profound commitment to being a conduit for divine energy and knowledge, Danielle offers a wide range of spiritual services to support her clients on their spiritual journeys, including psychic readings, energy healing sessions, certifying healers in the modality of angelic Reiki, and imparting the sacred teachings of various ascended masters. Through her gifted connection and teachings, Danielle fosters a space where divine wisdom not only enlightens, but also inspires individuals to unlock their own spiritual potential. Welcome, Danielle. It is our true pleasure to have you here today. We are excited to learn about your path and how you've created so many avenues of expression, as well as how you've helped to guide and empower women through your work.
Thank you so much, you guys. I love being here with you guys this morning. This is amazing. And I love the mission of your podcast. So thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thank you for being on and accepting our invitation because, we just had a great time in Egypt, but now it's time to really, really know about you and really understand you because you are woman arising. You've done a lot through your past, through the life that I know personally. But I want to know, when you hear that, what is that making you feel? What is that making you connect to with inside yourself?
Yeah, no, I love it. The same image comes to me time and time again, which is like almost like a deep sea diver woman coming up and breaking through the water, right? I mean, that is the image over and over that I see. It's like, it's emerging. It's an emergence. And that's what it feels like for me. And I think what it connects with for me is, yes, on a personal note, but all of us, which is why you guys, I'm sure, are doing this podcast, is I feel like there are these women everywhere, all around the globe. And it's kind of like, this is the time. It's like, we're all popping up from the ocean, right? We're all coming up. We're all coming up. It's just an absolute emergence of not being afraid to be seen, not being afraid to be heard, not being afraid to take up space, not being afraid to be loud, be loud and say, it's my time and I can claim it. And that's good. And it's okay. And this is exactly the right time, whether I'm 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, it's now is the time, right? And that's really what it feels like when I think of woman arising. And I also think it also, for me, feels like within the men around us too. It's like for their feminine to emerge, for the feminine parts of them to be accepted, acknowledged, so it's it always is about balance to me, but I feel like it really is about that even being allowed to shine from within them and their own feminine essence, right? Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about your personal journey, how you feel in really just like a couple words, because we have a lot more questions on that.
To answer your question, for me personally, it feels like, yes, like my own emergence. Like for me, I feel like I've lived 6 different lifetimes in just the last 10 years, right? Like 3 different careers. And you know how it is for us, we define ourselves so much by our careers and what we do in the world and how we show up in the world, right? And so even as a channel, that took many, many years for me to get loud about that and to share that with people, because for the longest time, that was just something I did for me. I thought all the messages were just for me until one day they went, honey, you're supposed to be doing this for other people. You're so cute, but this isn't just for you, right? And so for me, the emergence is my authentic true self, which for a long time I would do things parallel to my actual, reason for being here, but to avoid being on the actual path because that was scary and different and weird. And what does that mean? And I don't understand it. And there was never a template for it. So what do I do with this? Right. I was well into my mid 30s when I started actually really embracing that. So there it goes again with the emergence, right? The authentic emergence, the being loud, being seen, and really being on the path. And I feel like that sometimes for many of us can take decades to figure out, right? I mean, it's like you wish you knew it when you were 17, 18, but not all of us do. Sometimes we're 35, 40, 45, 50, right? So yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
It is a journey. So
I love how you talk about not always knowing who, or having that permission to be all that we are. Like there's an inkling, but then we don't necessarily embody it. And that is part of that rising, that is part of that experience. And I think a lot of women would relate to that because I think sometimes we don't always see it reflected in the world, right? And so to be able to sort of be that model for others is really important, I think. With that said, I'd love to hear a little bit about your life's journey and how you got to where you are today. What were all the things that, helped you discover this and become kind of who you are and all of these amazing different avenues that you have to express yourself?
It's interesting because when I was in school, maybe from the time I was 12 or 13, I always thought I wanted to act. And really, as I grew up, I really realized that that was really about the desire to be expressive, right? Because I was always a very good little girl, a quiet girl, an introverted girl. And so really it was the desire to be expressive and to be able to take on emotions because I didn't know as a child that I didn't know what an empath was, but of course I was an empath. And so when I could be on stage or do something like that, even though it scared the bejesus out of me, like literally I was like incredible anxiety. So I wasn't that person that was always like needed to be the star of the show, but yet I was drawn to wanting to do these plays and be these characters. And it was always because I could take on what people were feeling. And so it's like, you need the girl who could cry on cue. You need the girl. It's like, I could do that because I could just put myself in somebody's shoes and immediately be there, right? I didn't know all of this growing up, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do because I felt like I'm good at it. I get it. And so that was sort of my focus for the longest time. And then I went to college and I was doing theater and I had an agent and I was doing my thing. And then I got pregnant my senior year. I was with one person who I met when I turned 18, right when I got to college. I was with him the whole time. And we had an unplanned pregnancy. It was like, surprise. So then you go back into that old conditioning of, well, now I need to be the good girl, right? What do? I need to get married. I need to just go, get a job, finish my degree, forget all this other stuff, forget all these other dreams, forget all these other things. And I went through that process. I got married young. I had a baby. And I moved to LA and I started working at an agency. So then I was becoming the talent agent who was helping everyone do what I wanted to do. But also on top of that, I was teaching acting. Again, helping everyone do what I had originally wanted to do. And I was young. I mean, you're talking 22 through to 27 in that range. I was doing that. Now, during that time, I had a grandfather that I was very close to who passed away. And I started seeing him and I would get out a piece of paper and I didn't know what I was doing, but I would start having dialogues with him. And I knew it was real because I would be crying and I would hear his voice and I would see his face and I would feel hugs. I would feel embrace. All of these things were happening. I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't really understand it. I felt a little bit crazy, right? And then at the same time, I was suffering from that path of doing things because I felt like it was the right thing to do, but not really what my heart wanted. Right. And so I, one day, I was all of 22, 23. I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't breathe. And I called a friend of mine, and his best friend, or he was my best friend, but his mom's best friend knew a woman who was a psychic, and it was a family friend for 20, 30 years. He goes, you need to see her. She's amazing. Little old Jewish lady. She was like phenomenal. And I was like, okay. And again, in secret, went and met with her. And the first thing she said to me when I walked in, she goes, you have 8 angels around you right now. And she went into this whole beautiful thing. I burst into tears. And she's like, you're a channel. You're a channel. Do you understand that? And I'm like, no, what does that mean? She goes, bring me your notebooks. So she flips through them. She goes, honey, you're automatic writing. You're a channel. You don't know that? And I'm like, no, and all this stuff. So that took me, so I would be an agent by day. On weekends, I was teaching acting at an acting school in Santa Monica. I was working 7 days a week, but at night, I would go and study with this woman. And she taught me pendulum, automatic writing, talking to spirit, gratitude practice. I mean, all the things, right? And I'm 42 now. This was in my early to mid 20s. We did that for 2 years. And during that time, I just thought that it was my own spiritual awakening, my own spiritual learning, my own journey. And it took many more years for me to sort of agree or listen and go, okay, I'm supposed to do this for other people, right? But it started with me just, again, being very much in the closet about it, very much. And at the time, too, I had moved into producing. So I was producing feature films, indies, nothing, not for Sony or anything like that. But I was producing movies. I was doing all sorts of other things. But if someone said, what do you want to do? Like, what is your absolute goal? What would come out of my mouth is, I want to have a healing center. And then where did that come from? Like, where did that come from? Right. So I was sort of leading a double life. So again, that whole woman arising part of it, it was like I was discovering who I was. You certainly, as somebody who sees spirit or communes with spirit, you're not told that that's normal when you're growing up. You don't understand what's happening when you're growing up. You're told you're imaginative. You're in the clouds all the time. You're told you're too sensitive, toughen up. Why do you cry at the drop of the hat? But it was just extreme sensitivity. And I will tell you, it wasn't until I had been studying with spiritual teachers that, I was well into my 30s when I really understood all of that, looking way back into childhood and going, wow. So when you look at all the pieces, and I know this is kind of a long-winded response, but when you look at all the pieces of the trajectory, again, like acting, and then being an agent, and then being an acting teacher, and then producing movies. So you've got the storytelling thread. You've got this, I kind of see it as my own heroine's journey in a way, which obviously I'm still in the middle of. But it was really learning, who am I? Am I going to answer the call? Right? Am I going to answer the call? And I still struggle with that. Sometimes it's like, no, can I go back to bed? I don't want to answer this call. Then, oh, damn, I got to answer the call. Right? But it's that emergence again. How brave are we to be seen for what we are? Well, first we have to understand what we are and understand what we want to be. And then there's, what we think we want to be from an ego perspective versus what maybe we're being told or shown that we really are. And it's like meeting yourself over and over and over again. It's ongoing.
I really relate to a lot of what you're saying because my background's in theater too, and theater and performance. I was a director, but that was a big chunk of my career was doing all of that. And that level of sensitivity. And I think sometimes you are drawn to that performing or whatever, because there's so much immersion with the human condition and understanding sort of all of those aspects. And so I love how, regardless of whatever direction we go in, that the universe always course corrects, right? And brings us back to where we need to be. But so in doing all of this, like what obstacles did you have to overcome? And what were some of the sort of pivotal experiences you had in this that left that indelible mark on your life and sort of shaped and defined you?
Yeah. Well, I would say it's, again, that whole over and over having to meet yourself again and really having to be aware, because I find that, at least for me, and I feel like this is the same for a lot of people, when you grow up as a sensitive child, it's a protective mechanism to leave the body, right? It's a protective mechanism to go, okay, well, I can't be hurt, or I can't be, if I can just kind of detach, or if I can go up here and play in the angelic realm or play, it's like, then I'm not completely present in my body. So for a long time, I would detach, and I didn't quite understand that I was doing that or know that I was doing that. So I would say it's been the last 10 years where I've really, and it's still, I'm always working on it. And I would say I oftentimes still find myself going, wow, I'm not really in my body at the moment. And I have to really be cognizant of it. Right. But, I had a baby when I was 21 years old. I got married when I was 21 years old. I had this path that I was very much like, this is what I'm doing. And many times I've had that then where it just all stopped. And then you have to re-meet yourself. Am I making choices because that's what's expected of me, or because that's how I grew up, or that's what I was taught within my religion or my family? Am I following my heart, or am I following the crowd? Right. And so that was a big one for me. That was a lot of what my first marriage was about. And my son is an absolute gift. Like, as they say, it's like my favorite mistake, right? It was like, I wasn't expecting it, but he is just the most lovely human in the world. And I've had 2 more since then. So my children are my greatest joy. But every time I've had a child, that's been a very conscious choice. And I've had to stop everything I was doing. My third child I had, and Zeffi knows this story, so sorry you're hearing it again, but I was producing a movie and I was in the movie. I was pregnant, and I was maybe 4.5 months pregnant, and I started bleeding profusely. This was a week before we were supposed to go film. I went to the doctor. The doctor goes, you're most likely going to lose this baby. And I'm going, what? So I have this movie that's, and it's like you're working around the clock to get this thing done. You have investors, you have, all the things. And I said, so are you telling me bed rest? And he goes, well, no, because you're most likely it's the baby's just going to pass through, but be near a hospital. And I said, I'm not near a hospital. I'm in the woods, in a cabin in the woods. It was this horror comedy film. So anyway, long story short, I do the film, bleeding the whole time, 16-hour days. We get it done. I come back. I go to a specialist. Now, mind you, in between this time, I have had at least one psychic, someone I see once or twice a year for about 12 years. She's phenomenal. And she had told me, you're going to lose the baby. You're going to lose the baby. I came back. I still had the baby. And it was one of those moments where you're making that deal with God. You're like, no, I want this baby. I want to do it. I'll stop all these other things I'm doing. And the specialist said, baby's still hanging in there. And that moment, I called the other 2 films that I was producing, and I said, I'm out. I'm not acting in them. I'm not producing them. I'm just out. I'm done. So again, that was another one of those moments in life where you get this momentum going, right? From a professional standpoint. And then you make the choice, because in that moment, I believe I really did have the choice. And it was like the brakes. It was like, okay, I'm choosing this. All of this needs to fall away. And that's what I did. So again, there became another time of, well, now I need to reinvent myself. Who am I now? If I'm not the producer, if I'm not, then who am I?
Right.
So those were some pivotal moments. It's constant. It never ends. And then similarly, I've had a couple moments, Egypt was one of them, quite honestly, and I'm still processing it. I went with Zeffi and some beautiful women to Egypt for 3 weeks, and it really was life-changing. And I feel like I got back and there was a funeral and all these things. It hasn't even fully integrated yet, but I've had moments like that, like when I went to the UK and did my angelic Reiki attunements, and then Isis was coming in so strong, and everything I was seeing when I'd lay hands on people or they'd lay hands on me was being in the Nile. And that's when Egypt was first on my radar. And I was like, okay, they're telling me I got to go to Egypt. So there's all these things that I feel like have shaped me. But because I'm really attentive now and listening to spirit and communing with spirit all the time, luckily I'm thrown the breadcrumbs, right? So it's like, here are the breadcrumbs. And I might miss a few. I might be looking over here and they're throwing them over there. I mean, it's certainly not perfect and it's not easy, but I try my best to follow the breadcrumbs and to be patient and to flow and to allow. But because of that, it has changed my life in so many ways. I would never thought in a million years I'd be sitting here on this podcast talking to you. Yes, I'm a channel. Yes, I'm a medium. Yes, all of those things. Never in my life would I thought that would be where my life would take me ever.
What was that moment that helped you make that shift to because you had a whole career, you were quite successful, it sounds like, in many different ways. And then somewhere along that road, you made that commitment. What was that moment?
Yeah, well, so as I would take classes to expand my own, again, like we're always studying, right? Like I'm always going to be studying. So you're trying to get better at your craft and you're learning and you're thinking you're doing it for you. And then I would have students in the same class texting me, can you give me a reading? Or I love the way you describe this. Can you teach me this? And I remember telling my husband when this first started, and I was like, this feels weird. Like that's the teacher. And I don't want to step on toes. And this feels strange. And I read for me. I don't read for other people. And he goes, yeah, but can you help the person? And I would go, well, yeah, I can see X, Y, and Z. Yes, I think I can. And he'd go, why don't you do it? And so that's partly how it started, was people coming to me, and I wasn't offering, it wasn't advertising, it wasn't anything. And then I went, okay. And then as I would see them grateful and seeing them coming back or seeing something shift or change for them, that made me feel good, because as we're of service to other people, it makes us feel really darn good, right? And so it was like, who am I to be scared? And then as this stuff got tougher, like now it's a client whose husband's an alcoholic and there's, bigger things, or this person has cancer, or this person, I would get that anxiety again. God forbid I get it wrong. I don't want to get wrong. I don't want the responsibility. But then each time, and spirit would say, no, but if your desire to help is bigger than your fear of not getting it right, you can't fail at it, right? Like you can't fail at it. And so I'd go, okay. And so then when as that kept rolling, it's again following the breadcrumbs and just saying yes. I feel like it was very incremental. So it was over the course of, 5 or 6 years of that happening that I just kind of went, okay. And now when they say, do this thing, I go, okay. And I don't know what that means. And it's like, write a book. Okay. But I can't sit and go, well, what publisher is going to publish it, or it doesn't matter. I just go, okay. And it's going to happen as it happens, So I know it's not as very specific. It's like a lot of little things that added to all of it, as opposed to one very specific moment. But I feel like if they would have given me one specific moment, I would have ran the other way, and I would have been like, no, scared.
That organic presentation that like, this is your path, whether you wanted it or not.
I think that ease me into it. And it's also things like, I had a crystal during COVID. I was like, I want to sell crystals, because I would hold them and I would channel them and I just love them so much. And I'm like, this brings me joy. I want to have a crystal shop, right? Started a crystal shop, but it was during COVID. So I didn't have a brick and mortar, and I knew we were moving. I was doing it online. And then in Alpharetta, we were doing the farmer's market, which is the biggest farmer's market in Georgia. And you might sell like $3,000 in a 4-hour period. I mean, it's bumping. There's like thousands of people through there. And I remember going, well, my goal is, because I'm going to have a brick and mortar, and then I'm going to have a little healing space in the back. And my team goes, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? I have $20,000 of crystals in my care. I was like, what do you mean? They go, you're going to be leaving soon. You're going to be going back to the sea. You're not going to be staying here as long as you think. Don't get the brick and mortar. And also, we have other things you want to do. So there's always that pull of resistance where I go, well, what do you mean? Because I'm seeing this. You're telling me no. And then I go, okay, it's because I'm adjacent. A crystal store was adjacent to what I'm really supposed to be doing. It's in it without being fully in it. So there you go again with the emergence, with the arising, right? It's like, we sometimes go, okay, well, we'll tiptoe around it. We'll kind of answer the call, but we're not fully going to answer the call. So that was another one of those pivotal moments where I went, like thought I had it all planned out. And, if you have a crystal shop, you're not a kook, right? Because everyone loves crystals. If you just go around, you're like, well, I'm a channel and I, talk to Magdalene, I talk to Mother Mary, you still get the side eye, right? You have the people that get it, and then you have a lot of people that are going to have things to say about it. So again, I was trying to take Easy Street, and they were like, no, aren't you cute? Like,
I love that. I think that like it's so interesting how we get on our path even and we think it's our path, and then we are actually detoured back to our actual path, which is really important. And I'm very impressed with, you're a manifester, it sounds like. If you put your mind to something, you really know how to create it, which is very exciting. And I guess that is leading me into my next question a little bit, which is, in society, there's a lot of sexism that women face, and we've been marginalized, and our contributions aren't often recognized. There's a lot of double standards. And I'm curious how you maybe noticed or experienced this and how this may have affected you in your life.
It's so interesting because when I think back about people I worked for, because now I don't work for anybody, but when I think of people I worked for, going back from college up until the last time I worked for somebody, they were all women. It was always a female boss or a female owner of a company. And so for me, it wasn't so much that I had the opportunity to see, well, my male counterpart is getting this and I'm being treated this way, right? Or they're getting this pay and I'm getting this pay. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to see that discrepancy because I always seemed to work for other women. But what I did see, and what's interesting, is most of the women I worked for did not have children.
Mm.
So if you have a woman who fought and clawed to get to the top of their, thing that they're doing, whether it was an agency or whether it was an acting school or whatever it was, a Pilates, there was a brief time when I taught Pilates in Beverly Hills, like that owner, it's like a lot of them didn't have kids. And I remember feeling like at that time, because again, I had a kid at 21, right? So I felt like it always was my husband's job. If the kid gets sick, you got to deal with it because I feel like I'll lose my job if I have to leave to go pick up my sick kid, or if I ask to leave early, or because I always felt like a lot of times, not every time, but women in those higher up positions sacrificed a lot to get where they were. And a lot of times they sacrificed having families and having kids. And there was almost an annoyance of like, now you have like a baseball game to go to, or now there's. So I made it a point to never do that because I could feel that there was this. It was like the opposite of I'm going to support you woman to woman. It was more like, look, as a woman, I had to do X, Y, and Z and jump through these hoops to get here. So if you want for me and raise the, climb the ladder, then you need to follow my lead. So it's interesting. So it's funny. It's not so much how I felt marginalized being a woman from a masculine, feminine perspective, but more of a woman to woman perspective, honestly, which is like a whole other ball of wax. But that's a whole other podcast topic, right?
But that conditioning of how it is for a woman to sort of be successful and in a way, even it seeps into that mentorship of other women sometimes, because that is the game that is played so often, and we have yet to redefine some of it. Interesting.
Like the belief that what gets passed down, right, is you have to sacrifice a lot if you want to get where I'm at. You have to sacrifice and you have to work hard, which is sort of the opposite of like what we all try to say, right? Let it flow, like let it come to you. Don't try to grab onto it and reel it in, not to say don't take action, but let it come like, on the wings of angels, if you will, let it come as it's meant to come. And that's not what I feel like I learned, in for me. But it was funny because I was actually trying to remember back to when I've really had male bosses, and I really, really haven't. It was always females.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Well, in that note,
Yeah.
you had so many female energies that were masculine,
Yeah.
Because they were the doers, correct? They were the ones that fought for it. They the ones that said, I'm going to let go of my femininity, let go of having children, let go, whatever, for me to grow and rise to the level that everybody's telling me I should be. So in those situations, were you able to like connect to your feminine or to that ease into the energy, or you became as a doer also? Or did you find this feminine like relief at times that you can settle maybe when you connected to your spiritual path, connecting to Isis or something, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I that's a good question. So I feel like growing up, I definitely was always conditioned to work hard. You got to work hard, you got to earn it. You got to study hard, you got to work hard, you got to put in the time, you got to sort of fight and claim it and hold on to it and be loud. And that was always sort of the opposite of just who I naturally was, right? But I was also a pleaser, and I was also wanted everyone to be happy with me, even whether it was, performance wise with bosses or parents or whatever. So that was an interesting thing. When I got into more of the spiritual work and and again, mostly females, that's who I really started learning the softness from. Like, Zeffi, you're incredibly soft, flowy, and feminine. You are so much that. That doesn't mean that you're not balanced and have the masculine, but again, coming from LA or coming from the movie industry or coming from that kind of stuff, it's very, very different what you get from the feminine, the women, in those businesses, again, because of the conditioning and how much they had to fight and claw to get where they are. From you, from a few other lovely teachers and mentors I had as well, that's where I really started learning, like, wow, I need to really get in touch with my feminine. And I will say that before I went to Glastonbury a couple years ago, was in the UK and getting all these Reiki attunements, all of my guides were masculine. It was Jesus. It was Saint Germain. It was Metatron, right? And when I went there, I had this very profound experience. I was getting one of my attunements done, and it was one of those like 30-minute attunements. There were like 4 of us ladies in the class. We're on our yoga mats, and all I wanted to do was crawl into a hole because I was going, I hope I'm not disturbing the class right now. I was sobbing. I'm on the ground convulsing, and what I'm seeing in my third eye here is I was laying there giving birth. And this is what I reported back at the end of the class when everyone's going, are you okay? I said, yes, I was giving birth. And there was a ring of women around me. And it was all women. It was Mary Magdalene. It was Mother Mary. It was Isis. It was Kuan Yin. And I was giving birth. And Metatron was standing behind me. And Jesus was standing behind me. Now, at that time, he had been my main, like Jesus is my guy. And I remember looking at him because I was scared, and it was like, come help me. And he went. And in that moment, I was so hurt. Like, I was actually hurt. Like, what do you mean no? And he goes, they've got it. The women have it. And that's when I went, holy ooh, I have to like actually engage with this feminine, which had been so foreign to me because I was usually always engaging with the masculine. So I would say it wasn't until the last 3 to 4 years that I really started engaging more with the feminine. And I'm still working on it because I'm still a doer. It's all the conditioning. I'm a doer. Let's make this happen. Let's make it happen now. I'm not patient naturally. I'm not a patient person. So it's a constant learning. I won't say it's a constant struggle, but it's a constant learning, softening, allowing, constant. Yeah.
That's really amazing. Well, I watched you in Egypt, and I can see when you were ready just to be that doer, but then you also kind of looked at the surroundings and where we were and how everything was reacting, that you can just click into that feminine very quickly because I watched in you. So I would say, what kind of piece of advice can you give to women that because of this experience that you've been through and still being a doer and coming from a background, the women were your bosses and they were just because we do have all women in the world, we kind of conditioned to have that with each other. We have to learn not to. It's kind of like we got to take ourselves out of it because that's not our natural state. What advice you give to women that they're ready to really go into our natural state? And I'm saying ours because it's all of us, it's not just you and me or Cathy. It's all of us. We need to get into this non-doer, doer, but not as masculine doing,
Yeah. Not with the death grip.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, don't force. I would say, gosh, it all stems from perfectionism, right? So it's like whether we, as young women and our young women today, because I have a 13-year-old daughter, and they're on TikTok and they're bombarded by social media, and it's filters and it's little the behaviors on TikTok and things like that. And I just go, man, perfectionism doesn't exist. Don't try to attain it. Like, if I could say one thing to anyone younger, to these young women growing up, don't focus on being perfect, because it takes you down a rabbit hole that will take you decades sometimes to undo. That need to be perfect and to please everyone, like that disease to please, or you're only going to be loved if you're being a good girl. Like, that's not true. It's letting these girls know, like, hey, look, you can fail, you can have hard times, you can have good times. And guess what? You're going to be loved no matter what, because there's this whole community of even just women alone who are here to support you. Whereas I feel like when I grew up, I didn't know that really. It was like, no, if you're good, you're loved. If you do the right thing and you're a good girl, you get accolades, right? And it's like, my gosh, I think that's like the number one thing that can sort of screw a kid up, is that feeling like you have to be perfect, right? And so I would say that's one thing. And the other thing is rejection, the whole thing about rejection being redirection. It's like, if you want to do something and you're not failing if something isn't going through how you want it to go through. You're just being redirected because there's something more beautiful. But I feel like, and you guys can let me know if this has been the case for you, but I know in my life, you have a dream. Maybe you have a dream for a really long time, and you're fighting for it and you're trying every avenue. Okay, this didn't work. I'm going to go in the back door now. Now I'm going to go in the window. Now I'm going to go, I'm going to be really creative. The doggy door. I'm going to do all the things to get into this space that I want. And it's not working, and it's not working, and it's not working. And then maybe a decade goes by, and it's almost like you have to ask yourself, but is that my current dream? Or is that the dream that I'm still attached to that's 10 years old? And now I don't even really care about that. I'm just conditioned to thinking I have to succeed at it, because if I don't, then I failed, right? And so for me, I think that young people coming up and knowing that they're loved no matter what, and they are never failing. They're just constantly being redirected, and that's okay. I think those would be the two biggest things that I certainly wish I knew on my journey, when I was younger.
That is a great advice for the younger generation and the younger women to come up, and also for the older women, because we can hold on a dream for such a long time. And the obstacles, we're not letting go of it, because we're holding on, like we know it's going to happen, and we get very stubborn about it. So that's really great advice. But so what do you do now that you understand your feminine energy and you kind of connected to it? What would you do daily for you kind of bring in that feminine in your 5 minute of your day, or 10s, or an hour? I don't know what you do, just kind of connect with your feminine.
Yeah. Well, I meditate. So I used to love to meditate twice a day. Now I'm really lucky if I get it in once a day. I like to do my rosary. I do not any longer get it in every day, but I try to do it a few days a week, because there's my Mother Mary, which for me, she's a constant guide. I mean, I live in St. Mary's, Georgia, for goodness sakes, which I didn't even know was a thing until a month before we moved here. And if that, so I communicate with her quite a bit. And so when this came up, I went, oh, you got to be kidding me. It's called St. Mary's. Okay. So I like to do my rosary. I like to do my meditation, and I do all different types of meditation. I do mantra meditation. I do the practice that you gifted me as well. And a lot of times I will just do, that's where I connect. And I try to channel every day too. If I have clients, I usually don't get it in for myself, But that's where I get my connection in, because that's when I just talk directly to Mary Magdalene or to Mary or Mother Mary or any of them. But I'm over the past few years, like I said, I call in the feminine 80% of the time now, and 20% of the time it's the masculine. So that's what I do. I try to just talk to them, it's like just talk and then listen and hear the response and let myself be guided. And that's really what I try to do for my practice. I also really try to be outside, and I'm looking right now at a river right in front of me. And it's like I try to be outside. I get recharged and so connected, especially to the feminine, when I'm in nature. So if I could get my feet in the dirt, if I can get my feet in the water, if I could get my feet under that oak tree, like that's like my number one quickest, easiest way to just feel held. And to me, that's what the feminine is that feeling of being held. So yeah, I would say that would be about it for me. Movement also, but I don't get to that all the time. Especially like dance and stuff. I still go through that. Oh, it feels awkward, feels weird, but then when I do it, I love it because you feel so free. It's like, oh, I really should do this, especially me, every day. Right. But I'll be honest, I don't do that every day. I do it sometimes.
That's amazing. Thank you for all that. Because when you were talking about nature, and I just remember all of us jumping into the Nile and just really screaming from the boat, we're here, we made it, and we're swimming in the Nile. So that was coming and screaming and being wild. And that was, that's where you just kind of, the picture that came in front of me.
I'm like, I can't go to any other river because I'm like, we went in Nile. Now I'm like, this river? No, not the same. Take me back, Zeffi.
Well, we'll go back.
I've just been so enjoying hearing all of your different perspectives and all of the ways in which your life has unfolded for you. And, I'm thinking about the future. And my question is like, what unique contributions and perspectives do you think women bring to shaping our collective future? And what is it that you would really love for women to kind of know as we go and shape this collective future?
Yeah. I feel like the first thing for us all to remember is we're not in competition. That's the biggest thing. Like, I really am a big fan of women supporting other women in a really, really big way. I feel like we're sort of raised to almost feel like we are in competition, or, for the longest time, I would say, women can be so brutal, or like girls can be brutal to other girls, right? And we remember it from when we were in school and younger, and you're like, God, like boys can go through their things, get in a fist fight, but girls can be vicious. I mean, they really can be vicious. And you go, as adults, it's like we're not in competition, and we are so strong when we are united. Like, we're unstoppable when we are united. And also, I feel like we have this gift of remembrance. I feel like right within our wombs and within our hearts, it's like we carry the keys to the kingdom. I mean, that's just the truth. We do. It's like we have the seed, we have the ability to, everything is in this fertile womb, and to create and to build and to be creative. And I think that, one thing, and I was talking to my husband about this, and I'll make this story incredibly brief, but I had something that I was doing at a pretty prominent place in the United States where I was part of this healing class and workshop that was happening at this place. It was a very brutal time for me. I was not there in more of an assistant sort of role, but it was a very, very challenging time for me. And I had 4 or 5 women who I met in a spiritual class that sort of lived nearby. And they're like, we want to come, we're going to come visit you. And I said, I'm not even going to have time to hang out. Like I'm, at the end of the day, like maybe I can see you for half an hour. They came all the way to this sort of prominent place to see me for about 45 minutes. They met me at a cafe. I walked into the cafe. They're waiting for me. I looked like I had just been pummeled. Like I was just like a hot mess. And they just went, honey. And one's handing me a chai tea latte. The other one's pulling all her doTERRA oils out. The other one's slathering them all over my chest. They sit me down. We're in the middle of this cafe. One is at my feet and they're putting the oils on my feet. And the one's going, pulling the energy, like the yucky energy out. And I'm just like, And these women did this for about an hour. And one of them goes, "Oh my God, I just want to kiss you all over." And she came over literally like I do with my smallest child, planting kisses all over my face. And there's that moment where you're going, this is awkward, or I don't like all this attention. I'm not used to all this focus. This feels weird. I want to flip it around and go, no, but how are you? And how was your drive? Like, I don't like the attention being on me. And in that moment, I was like, and this is what strong, empowered, intelligent women are at their best. They band together. They are holding you in this cocoon of love. And it doesn't matter that like they will get on their knees and be putting stuff on your feet, oils on your feet if that's what you need. And you just go, God, and that is something that women bring to the existence, to everything. And I don't want to say men are amazing. I love men. Don't get me wrong about that. But I go, wow, that is women at their highest and best, supporting other women and elevating a space and healing. And that's what we bring. It's like we bring the wisdom, we bring the remembrance, we bring the love. I mean, it's like, I don't even know how else to say it, but I had to share that story because to me, that's what the women bring when we're at our best. It's nice.
I love that image of that sort of like beautiful priestess of healing energy, and you walk in need, and there is that lovely community to hold you. And I think that is really a big part of that divine feminine. Well, it's just been so exciting to hear your take on so many different things today. And I have to say, it's made me eager to work with you and know about how to connect with you. And I am wanting you to share with us, like, how can people connect with you? What are some of the things that you're doing that people could participate in and really benefit from this wonderful healing work that you have been dedicated to?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to find me is just my website, which is danielleartigo.com. Pretty easy. I'm very accessible. I do answer DMs on Instagram and that kind of thing. But yeah, I just wrapped up an advanced Reiki course. I have another advanced course happening at the end of July. In September, I'll be in Canada. So I'll be in Dawson Creek and Grand Prairie doing some angelic Reiki workshops there, which will be fun. And I think I'm also teaching one on crystals at one of the crystal shops in Grand Prairie. So all that will be up on the website. I like to do a lot of stuff on Zoom. I do have a Mary Magdalene channeled course. It's 6 classes and I just absolutely love it. I've taught it once already. So this will be the second time going through it. And that one starts on her feast day, July 22nd. And it's once a week and it's on Zoom. And I absolutely love it. And then, of course, I do readings and healings and I combine them. So I do things a little differently because I automatic write. I do 30 minutes before the person walks in the room. So I've already channeled a good portion of it. And then we spend 60 minutes together in the room unpacking everything that they said. So that's usually how I work. So I like to do one-on-one, but I really love the classes. And I feel like my team is really like, you hit more people when we can channel to you. Because when I teach a class, it's all channeled. So it starts with a 20 or 25 minute, literally channeled teaching from them that I've channeled ahead of time. And then they unpack things, answer things. Sometimes they come in and they're answering, like literally will come in and be in my body and it's their voice coming out. So I enjoy that the most just because I feel like it's something special about having a group energy is really lovely. But yeah, I'm very accessible. I'm terrible about being on social media. So if people are looking for me on TikTok or something, you won't find me. I never sign in. But yeah, I'm always happy to connect through my website for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. It has been our deepest and truest pleasure to have you here today and to be part of this conversation of helping women rise. So thank you, Danielle.
Right.
Thank you for taking the invitation and really honoring us with your presence. It was really amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you for tuning in to Woman Arising, where we celebrate the resilience, wisdom, and power of women on the rise. Remember, when women rise, we all rise. If you're ready to embark on your journey of empowerment, sign up for our mailing list at womenarising.com and join our community of strong, inspiring women. To connect with Zeffi Devi and ignite your inner fire, visit zeffidevi.com and sign up to get your free tantric meditation. Let Zeffi illuminate your path, helping you discover the magic and power that reside within you. To connect with Cathy Hartenstein and claim your spectacularness, visit createmorebliss.com and sign up for a free 30-minute consult call where she can help you break through your emotional blocks to success. Let Cathy be your guide on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Thank you for being a part of the Women Arising community. Together, let's continue to uplift, inspire, and empower women everywhere. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep embracing the divine feminine power that resides within you.
You are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer.